All right, back with market this week. Week ended 20th of October 2017. It was a truncated week of trading with only 3 days in the Indian equity markets of trade. Actually, 3.5 days. We had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we have the Muhurat trading, which is an hours of trade in the evening of Diwali. So essentially a truncated week in terms of time, but in terms of price, it was fairly eventful. I have the Bank Nifty chart in front of you. I thought I'll start off with the Bank Nifty this week. And 4 days of, 3.5 days of continuous sell off gets the index below its previous swing low. The index actually fell quite sharply in Thursday's evening 1 hour trade. Let's quickly look at the Nifty, and we can clearly see signs of outperformance vis-a-vis the Bank Nifty, which has slipped into an downtrend. Nifty, on the other hand, is doing relatively much better. We do have a negative day on Thursday's trade, but overall the index is holding fairly well. Couple of things to note. If you recall, in my last week's market this week commentary, I had mentioned, looking at the monthly chart, that there are early signs of a possible top out. uh, these early signs are still intact, not confirmed yet. Once I have the confirmation, obviously I'll share that with you. On the daily chart, I have an expanded market, where I have the short-term Bollinger Band shooting above the long-term Bollinger Bands. The index was kind of a little overheated. It's cooling off, but I sense that in this band of moving averages is likely to get some support. The psychological 10,000 should act a pretty good source of support for sure. The trend is intact. I sense that the index will definitely find some support at lower levels for a bounce back. Having said that, from a short-term point of view, if Thursday's sell-off continues further down, then obviously I can expect a little further move down around 70 to 80 points correction on the downside for the Nifty. And if that happens, as I showed you, it will probably, the underperformance from the Bank Nifty, which has slipped below all my moving averages, will definitely continue. Uh, when we are talking about the underperformance from uh, the banking stocks, so it makes sense to quickly take a look at the constituents of Bank Nifty. And as always, I'll start off with State Bank of India, because this is one big drag. Uh, as you can clearly see from the daily chart of State Bank of India, it's been in a downtrend for quite some time. But the chart is getting really interesting. The reason why I say this is because it's back to very crucial, critical supports, which has been holding the stock up for almost since October 2016, so almost a year. These levels, the psychological levels of around 240, 235, 245. So I'm looking at a 235, 245 band, which held the index, which held the stock up since September, October 2016. I see early signs of a possibility of a divergence with my RSI indicator. Uh, I see that my volatility indicator is stretched on the upside, which means that it's an expanded stock likely to cool off. This line says that it's underperforming, which is very clear from this. So bottom line, SBI is at important supports. This is a weekly chart. When I look at a daily chart, I see kind of a gap down, and after the gap down, it's actually not selling off, it is making smaller candles. If this is a selling exhaustion, then you might see some signs of recovery. I don't sense that recovery will be really sharp, but definitely 235, 245 is a band one should look into if someone wants to accumulate this stock in its cash portfolio. Let's move on with the others. Axis Bank, big gap down. Definitely a stock to stay away from, because it's in the midst of range expansion. In fact, when you look at the PSU stocks, those are the ones which are in a downtrend across all time frames. Be it Bob, you look at Canara Bank, Fed Bank. Fed Bank, on the other hand, is doing fairly better. Fed Bank, HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank. Okay, before I come to ICICI Bank, see that clear signs of outperformance coming from the private sector banks. Look at HDFC Bank, IndusInd Bank, Kotak Bank, Yes Bank. All these stocks are fairly trading above its 55 exponential moving average. They find good support whenever they dip down and bounce back. So I sense this outperformance from the private sector banks will continue for sure. ICICI Bank, coming back to this, is however in a downtrend below all my four moving averages. It is on the verge of an expansion, volatility expansion, as I see my shorter term Bollinger Band on the verge of expanding and going outside the long term Bollinger Band. Let's quickly look at the weekly chart and figure out what's happening there. Well, the last breakout for ICICI Bank came at around 240, 245. Current lows are around 256. So like State Bank of India, this stock too is actually inching close to its important supports. And I sense that one should definitely put an alert between that 240 250 band. And I sense that this band will hold this sell off for a nice bounce back on the upside. Indicators are nicely oversold for quite some time. Volatility suggesting it's kind of average, not an extreme at all. It's gone into the underperforming zone for sure. But I sense that in this case, just like SBI, there it was a panic sell-off, and after the sell-off, it's kind of making smaller candles. Signs of exhaustion maybe. If you have a gap up opening or any kind of positive in the early half of this week, then it's likely to extend on the upside. In both ICICI Bank and SBI, it will be fueled by short covering for sure. So banking stocks, stick to private sector banks, buy on dips, continue to ride the trend. If you want to buck the trend, SBI and ICICI are the ones to look at closely. Let's look at the weekly performance. So I'm going to quickly open the report designer, and I am gonna check which sectors last week did relatively better. So now that's my universe of stocks, NEC indices. I quickly run and I figure out that there you go, PSU banks, private banks, that's mainly led by ICICI Bank. So Bank Nifty dragged. Financial services, just like the bankings, have actually dragged. Media is mainly dragged by Z, which has broken down its make or break levels. We've been tracking this stock for quite some time. And there you go, the make or break levels of around 517, 520 zone is gone. And this is the weekly chart of Z. It is slipped into a downtrend across all time frames. And I sense this underperformance will continue. Coming back to this, IT, I sense will be a definite a pocket of strength going forward. I say so because I see good movement in TCS, nice breakout. HCL Tech, let's look at that. Pretty good breakout and it's holding fairly well. We've been talking about Tech Mahindra for quite some time, and Tech Mahindra actually sold off and is at short-term supports, and I sense that this stock too will bounce back. I'm looking at a stock above my 55 average. I'm looking at a stock which is underperformed, which is under sold zone, and I sense that you have a short-term bounce back soon. Wipro, relatively better, and Wipro has been doing relatively better for quite some time. It's just the fact that it's not a very good momentum play. It doesn't move very fast either on the upside or downside. What I'm keeping a very close watch on this week is both HCL Tech and TCS. TCS for sure, it's kind of finding resistance close to that 2615 mark on the upside multiple times, and I sense that 2615, if it breaks, is going to probably find some fresh legs for a move on the upside. Coming back to the sectoral table, on the other side, it's the energy and the real estate. Energy definitely is the one we will be looking at. So let's change the Bank Nifty universe to energy. Scrolling down, did I miss out? Oh, there you go. Okay. So BPCL, flat, but has given a move around 4% move. This is a weekly chart last week, so uptrend intact. Let's see, followed by GAIL. GAIL is an exceptionally good long-term chart. Look at this. This is a beautiful monthly chart. Expanded on the upside, no signs of divergence, and I sense that this is one chart, this is one stock which is much likely to perform on the upside. When I come down to the daily chart of GAIL, I see a short-term correction. See how expanded it was on the upside. alongside some divergences. It's come off, oversold, and I sense that this counter is likely to give a bounce back probably mid this week. Hindustan Petroleum, just like BPCL and IOC. BPCL is, I think, relatively better off than both HPCL and IOC. IOC is at a stage where all the four moving averages have confluenced. The 13, 21, 34, 55 are all at the same price. So, guys, fasten your seatbelts. There's going to be a move from IOC very soon. NTPC. I've termed this stock as a dark horse for 2017-18. It's done fairly well. This is a monthly chart, and notice how well the moving averages have opened up. The last time you had such a opening up of moving averages on NTPC was way back here in 2005. So this stock definitely is going through a turnaround for sure. I don't know what's happening in the company's end, but the stock is actually doing fairly good. Similar kind of behavior can be expected from ONGC, but what I don't like in ONGC, it's a very slow mover. Not a very good stock to trade, probably, in your cash portfolio. Reliance beats everything. Exceptional move on Wednesday's trade. We had a short-term intraday trade on this day. No signs of topping out for sure, either on the daily or the weekly or the monthly chart. So I sense that this guy is definitely slated for adding a digit to itself, that is the one psychological 1000 mark. Any dip on this stock would definitely be an opportunity to buy into. As long as it holds above my 55, see my blue line, I am a buyer in this stock. So I think this outperformance from energy, especially led by Reliance, followed by a bit of support from ONGC, NTPC, and the oil marketing companies, is likely to continue for sure. One more stock, ITC. This is on my radar for Monday's trade. I like it, though it's below my moving averages. When I go down to my intermediate trend, I see a nice consolidation. This is my 75-minute chart. I see a nice consolidation, range bound movement, 270 on the upside, 265 on the downside, so around 5 to 6 points. I had a breakout, it's dipping down. If this holds and if it bounces back and takes out 271, I think I have a 3 to 4 buck move on the upside. It's a short-term trade, probably valid for Monday and Tuesday. So within the IT space, I'm looking at TCS, HCL Tech, and ITC from the FMCG. You can also check Hindustan Lever, which is in a much better trend than that of ITC for sure. And I noticed that there is a positive possibility of a positive divergence, not confirmed. But my picks for this week early is ITC, a contra breakout on the upside, and TCS buy on a dip, which is close to supports. I've been getting amazing feedback from everyone. I appreciate that. This inspires and motivates me to make this videos, even if it's 11:35 at night and people outside are going berserk. Post the Diwali, they're still bursting crackers. But thanks a lot for those words of motivation. I continue to do that. Hope you're learning and enjoying this. My details are given in the description. Feel free to get in touch. As always, trade well, trade wise. Thank you.